It's great to see you all here. Great to see people still pouring in. But yeah, I'm Kyle. I work at HubSpot, at HubSpot Academy. My official job is to create trainings for HubSpot sales tools like Playbooks, which we're going to talk about today, and then also just general sales best practices. So if you've ever taken inbound sales certification or our sales management certification or sales enablement certification or any of those, I've been deeply involved in the creation of those. But I imagine if any of you know me, you may know me more from LinkedIn these days than from HubSpot Academy. I release daily videos about new HubSpot features. So if you are a HubSpot user, and if you are sometimes having trouble keeping up with all the features HubSpot is releasing because it's relentless, follow me on LinkedIn, and I will do my best to help you stay abreast of the most important ones.
Okay, great. So as I said, great having you here with us. I think let's kick this off. I think most people have already joined, and if anyone's joining, we're also recording this. So what we wanted to discuss, and you and I were having a conversation about what is probably the best topic to start with. Obviously, there were a few, and the idea of the series is to be able to touch as many topics as possible over time. But one thing that kind of we both bumped into was the use of HubSpot Playbooks for your sales and customer success teams, and one to have a conversation around what are playbooks, how do we use them, when should we use them, who should be using them, who should be setting them up. And so this we can skip because everyone's already met Kyle. As I said, like what is a playbook, how we should be using them, when we should be using them, who should be in charge of using them. And maybe we can start with the first question of I did take a look across our different portals, and we have, quite a few dozen portals that we manage, and there were only 1 or 2, 3 or 4 of them that were actually playing around with playbooks. Most of them hadn't actually either didn't know it was there or hadn't utilized it, because I was looking for different examples and use cases, which we do have 1 or 2 interesting ones that we can present at the end of this. But first of all, before we even dive into how do we set it up and what is a playbook, what is the goal for this playbook? What is the feature that HubSpot actually thought when creating this, and why do you think the amount of people using it at the moment? Again, on my small, out of the amount of HubSpot users, a dozen users that I was looking at, why isn't everyone already implementing this?
Yeah, these are all great questions. So Playbooks, I believe, first came out, I would guess 2018, maybe 2017, somewhere around there. And for a long time, they were only available in our enterprise tier. It was this enterprise only feature, and it was really lightweight. You could kind of, on a CRM record, you could have your playbooks listed and you could open them up, and they were kind of a sidebar with just like a list of questions. But the functionality has grown over time. They've become interactive. We've released the ability to connect those questions to properties so that as your reps go through these interactive call scripts, they're actually updating your CRM records and not just taking notes. We've done some design changes. So now instead of a sidebar, it's this floating window you can move around. And then about a year ago, I think we moved them down from enterprise to professional, which I was so excited for. I remember when Playbooks first came out, I was speaking at a HubSpot user group, and I said, we have this new feature. It's called Playbooks. Here's what it does. And a guy raised his hand and said, why is that an enterprise? That's clearly a professional feature. And I was like, I don't know. It's not up to me. And then we moved it down to professional, and I was so excited. And I think a lot of people were really excited. But I don't have any serious statistics on this. But Mark, my experience with customers has matched yours, that people aren't really using Playbooks. And I think there's probably a little bit of a hump to get over. You have to decide what you want a playbook about, and you have to actually sit down and create it. It is content, and that always takes work from someone. But if you can find the motivation to do that initial investment, then Playbooks they're just there, they're available, and your reps can use them. They're kind of this just-in-time content your reps can open up, whether you want to use them as a like an outline to define a full call, the way your sales reps qualify people, or if if you're using them with a support team or a success team, maybe questions to check in on the health of your customers, or you can have them just like, hey, I got this question I don't know the answer to. I'm going to pull up this playbook resource, and it's almost like an internal knowledge doc or something. And so I think I wish everyone would use them. I love playbooks so much. I just think there's so much opportunity here. As you'll see, Mark has created some really cool examples for you to use. And I think the main thing I want out of this webinar is for all of you to think like, oh, maybe I'll give playbooks a try. Because I think there's a lot of power here that's going untapped, unappreciated.
Yeah, so that's great. I agree with you, and I have been having over the last since researching this and going in and speaking to people, and obviously from our experience creating the playbooks, have asked the customers. I had a customer, a potential customer yesterday that I was talking to you about just before we started this. And they've mapped out very interesting the entire process that we need to go and build and the sales from lead all the way to cash. And they added exit criteria at each stage. And their thing was, how do we stop the salespeople actually moving over from one exit criteria to the other? And I said to them, well, then let's implement playbooks, and as a way where, one, if it's unprofessional, they just have to know that these exit criteria, so it's in front of them when they actually try and move it to the next stage, because it will stop them, because we can automate that and make that required. And two, what I found interesting is they said to me, listen, we have this playbook that's written. It's not that the sales team, actually gets on the call with nothing in front of them and doesn't, just winging it while he's on the call. So I said, okay, well then, besides everything we talked about, and we'll go into more detail, it's a no-brainer. Put that playbook, just paste it in with videos, and we'll show you and your links and whatever. And you have one truth of, like the CRM's one truth of one place of truth. Here you have everything you need for the call and the different types of calls that in one place. You go in, you can even add links there as well to your deck and anything that you need to present, and everything's there. I don't have to start 5 minutes before the call, start looking for it. And the updated version of that also is there all the time. So, they can once you update it, it's updated not only for that salesperson, it's updated for the entire sales team. So I agree with you. I think it's very powerful. It will help kind of add more process and more standardization into the sales and customer success process for sure. And I think that's part of the goal, is to get people to start using this.
Yeah.
Who do you think, whose job is it to actually create this? Because I think maybe that's one of the hurdles.
That could be one of the hurdles. Yeah.
Yeah, because the marketing content is clear. That's marketing. A landing page, they don't expect the marketing operations person to come up with the content, write the text, write the emails. They have to create all that, and maybe the marketing operations person or the marketer itself will go into HubSpot and then implement that, check that, and everything. And the same with the sales team. So I think the sales deck or the sales playbook in most cases, if they are organized, it probably exists. Just the marketing or the RevOps person doesn't even know it exists. And if it exists, it's kind of disconnected. What do you think about that?
I think that's the main question. Do you already have some sort of playbook your sales team is using? Many sales teams do, right? If you have done the work to define your sales process, if you know what your key qualification criteria are, the questions your reps need to ask every single person, every single time, and if that's documented somewhere, you have a playbook. You could just, if it's digital, you could just copy and paste it into HubSpot, right? And that would be an okay first version. You would not be getting a lot of the benefit of the interactive questions and stuff, but you would have a starting point. You would never have to start with like a blank screen and typing out manually what this is going to be like. On the other hand, if you don't have that, if your sales process is a little more less defined. And if your qualification criteria are more nebulous, then I think it's going to be a great exercise for your sales team, probably led by a sales manager or a VP of sales. It kind of depends on how big you are, how many people you are. If your sales team is just 2 people, then have those 2 people sit down and decide okay, what are the steps of our sales process? What are the questions we need to ask? What's the information we need to gather in order for this sale to close? And just jot those down, and then put them into a playbook. And you can use like an early version of a playbook. I'll show you in just a second how you build them. Your first version could just be a series of bullet points if you want, just similar to what you would put on a sticky note or just a notepad somewhere, like the things you just want to remember to do. That's what the playbook is for. It's to take some of that cognitive burden off the salesperson or whatever customer facing role while they're on the phone with the person. So they can just focus on listening and being present and doing the work they need to do, not trying to remember like, oh, what was that other question I was supposed to ask? Or what was the thing I was supposed to be positioning? Just actually do their job. So I think it depends a lot. And then the question of whose job is it to build this thing? Again, that depends a lot on your team and your organization. If you a large organization and you have a sales operations team or a sales enablement team, like clearly someone over there should probably do this. But more likely, if you're using HubSpot, you're a smaller team, maybe lots of people doing multiple roles. And I suspect you're right, Mark, that it's probably not clearly any one person's job to do this. But to your point, marketers are great at making content pretty, right? And so like if your playbook exists somewhere already, you can't really outsource creating your playbook. If your sales team doesn't know what questions and qualification criteria and stuff you need, first you've got to do that as a sales team, figure that out. But then once you have that, I think it's totally fine to reach out to a marketer and be like, hey, can you put this into HubSpot's playbook tools and can you make it look legible? A marketer would be like, hopefully the marketer would be like, yeah, totally, I'm happy to help the sales team. If not, they might need to rearrange some priorities a bit. But can I share my screen, Mark? Are we to that point now? I would like to
Yeah.
Yes, the actual creation of playbooks is probably the hurdle for most people, but I want you to understand it doesn't have to be hard. This is a pretty. Oh, are you seeing my family? That's nice. Okay, here is okay, here's the playbooks tool. Let me move some things around here. All right, so playbooks is under sales playbooks right here. And if you've created some like I have, you'll see them listed here. But I just want to show you the process from the beginning. You create a playbook. You can start totally from scratch if you want, or we have a couple of templates here. We'll start with this one, right? And so like already here, this is the qualification template, and we can see like a numbered list, right? You can do some basic formatting here. Honestly, like if you just wanted to start with bullet points, you could do that here and that would be fine. But these interactive questions are pretty cool. You can edit these. So like this question up top, do you have budget set aside for this purchase? What is it? No budget, less than 1,000, 1,000 to 500. You can change what these options are. And then your reps, as they're going through, they're just going to click buttons, right? They don't have to type up notes. They can. You have this note section here. But you're just guiding them through. Here's question 1, here's question 2. And like as the person talks, just click the relevant buttons so that you can stay engaged and keep talking. And this is lovely, right? This is fine. If you have the enterprise version, you can, like I said, connect these to properties. And I think my favorite thing about that, we just made this change this year. You can have these updating all of your standard properties, right? So if you want to do some of these that update a deal property and do some of these that update a contact property and do some of these that update a company property, normally to go through the CRM and update all those different properties on all those different records would be a lot of administrative work that even the best sales reps might fail to do sometimes, right? But if you can streamline this all into a single playbook, and as they're clicking buttons, these are updating properties in the background across multiple objects, all the associated company and contact and deal records, that just makes everybody's job so much easier, and it gives you so much better data. But again, if you don't have the enterprise version, even just having, Mark will show you some some of these that are just open text, where it's just a question and a place to type notes. Just having this structure, I'm following through, I'm taking notes in line. These are going to be saved as a note on the page, on the record. That's going to make things a lot easier. And we've done our best to make this editor usable. If you tried Playbooks like a year ago, you would have been like, oh, this editor is awful, I'm never creating a playbook. But we've fixed it. These are all, you can drag and drop if you want to rearrange these to a different order. You have all these these list styles and different rich text options, and you can just create this to be whatever you want. There's now a outline here, so if you want to add different headers, you can do that and make it really easy for reps to just click around and get to where they need to go. We've done our best to make it as simple as possible. And then another cool feature we just came out of with is this ability to recommend playbooks at different times. So first we made it just for deal stages, right? If a deal stage is a particular thing, if a deal is in a particular stage, we want this playbook highlighted, and it'll, in that playbook sidebar on a contact on a deal record, it'll have like a little star next to it saying recommended. Shortly after that, we expanded not just deal properties, but contact, lead status, lifecycle stage, ticket status, and category. So whatever your rep is doing, they're just in line doing their work, and the Playbooks tool will say, hey, now it's time to use this one. Hey, now it's time to use this one. And you can really integrate these questions and the steps of your sales process just right into the flow of the CRM. It's right where your rep is working. They don't have to open a new tab or a new window or anything. And I just think that's really powerful. And so that's the process of creating these. Again, like I started with this template, and so you could come in and replace all these questions, right, with the questions you want to actually ask. But I mean, even if you it started with a blank playbook, right? If you had nothing, you could just copy paste in text just like this, right, from wherever you are working already, wherever your playbook is already defined, and then at least you would have something, and you could iterate with it over time, and make it more and more useful to your reps.
And you can also collaborate with the rest of the team, because there's a good chance you'll be creating this with the rest of the team, and then
for sure,
show that to them and say, okay, before we go live, or look at the version, because the internal tool, there are no issues around that. The other thing that I liked about it is that you have the three options when you actually, and we'll show you in a second how to use it, but once you've created it and start using it, you can log it in as a call, as a meeting, or as notes. So I can use the playbook in different stages, as you said. One is between each stages, but I can also create like a pre-kickoff playbook, and I'll show you an example of it, of where while I'm actually going to the CRM as the SDR and doing a qualification, before I even try and set up the call, just kind of have all my notes in front of me, have the qualification questions, check if the job description is, makes sense, ICP, instead of running around the CRM where I'm kind of looking in my notepad and looking inside the CRM, do they have the information? I have to make sure that on the left-hand side, all of the fields that are relevant for this process that I'm trying to do are actually there, or at least the questions is the same thing. And then I can keep that on a note level, so I can actually say, great, I've logged in all the answers. That note now is shared with the next person that needs to take over, which might be the salesperson. And then he has all my notes there with the question and the answer, not just the answer, so that the context of everything is clear. And that's logged in, obviously, as I said, as a note or a call. That's great. I think it's the other thing. I'll show you an example of what you showed me before, is that you can also add files. I mean, not files. I can embed a video there. I can also embed an image and have hyperlinks. So one of the things that we were playing with is to try and keep it as like a vault where you have everything before that process. So you not only put in the questions, but you can have pre-questions and everything, all my notes there, and even have, let's say, a link to my deck. So I prepare myself for the call, go in, make sure everything's ready, hopefully use 2 screens, make life much easier. click into it, it opens my deck, and then I start presenting, go into my other screen in the meantime, and actually answer the questions or put in the notes from the questions that I'm actually answering, and not having to do that, and copy over that conversation afterwards. I know everyone is not doing that anymore because they're taking the transcription of whatever call they're having and putting in chat GPT, and then it's pulling out everything. But let's say we don't have that yet. This makes life, I think, much easier. The other question that I had for you is...
Sorry,
so maybe show us that.
You mentioned some things, and I meant to show that, as you're editing your playbook, there's just this plus button right here. And if you want to insert one of those interactive questions, you can, or a list or a video, like you said, different headings. You can put in images. If you have knowledge articles you've created on HubSpot, you can insert those here. Snippets, just all your different content, all your different things. Whatever it is that's going to help whoever is reading this script as they interact with your customers, whether that's a sales rep or a customer support rep or anyone else, give them the resources they need, and they can open them up and use them, and it'll all be in one place. I think that's a great idea. I hadn't thought of, linking to a deck or something, but that would make it so much easier for someone just getting set up and ready for a call, to have all the relevant resources in a playbook. I think that's a fantastic idea.
And I think the important thing with this is also you kind of have a way of having this standardized, as I said before, and updated across the team. So it's not that everyone is is doing the same process, but asking different questions, starting in a different way, inputting different data. The other thing that I was going to say is that just go back to the point of who should be pushing this and who should be trying to support this. And I think it's in the sales operations, marketing operations, it depends how big the organization you're working for. It could be one of their objectives as well, and kind of a mini project to run. They can get the marketing team to create the content from them, get it from the sales team, and so on. But if you're talking about making sure that your data is clean and that people aren't moving from process to process without exit criteria, making sure that it's standardized, to making sure that in the end the metrics are correct, and we're actually working with a process that everyone agreed upon. I think this is one of the best tools out there inside HubSpot, to be able to kind of make that a guided and structured process, which today it might, everyone might have a sales deck, but it's kind of sitting, somewhere in their drive, and are they using it, not using it, or pulling it out or looking at it. So I think it's a good combination between standardizing the process, creating the process, and then enforcing it to make sure that, and for the salesperson, I think it makes it'll make life much easier. Do you see more people on the sales teams using this, or the customer success, or any other kind of high-end use cases?
I am biased because I teach Sales Hub, and so I always think of the sales use cases, and that's more what I hear. It is packaged together in Service Hub also. So it's a professional and enterprise level tool in both Sales Hub and Service Hub. You get the exact same functionality either way. And now that you can have playbooks recommended based on ticket status or stage, the same way you do for deal stage, I think it's a great fit for support teams. I don't actually have usage numbers to know which area it's more popular in. But I see a lot more sales use cases just because that's kind of the world I work in.
What you're saying also in customer success, I could think of a use case now where I have let's say we have a customer portal or support portal using HubSpot's Service Hub, and a ticket comes in, and you look at the ticket and it gets to the stage where I need to actually go online and have a Zoom and speak to the person. Instead of me writing just in my notes, it kind of makes sense. I have the questions for me to diagnose what the problem is, how urgent it is, where they're finding it, put that all in. And what's great, what you just showed, is that I can do two things. One is it will trigger automatically and recommend it, and we'll show what that looks like in a second on the right-hand side. based on the stage of the ticket. So it could be ticket in process or ticket open or ticket answered, and then pop up just before that call. And then another thing that I think is very important is not only to have the information in front of you and to document it properly and get all the input from your customer, but you can actually create, and I'll show you an example when we show the use cases, next steps for that sales or that technical support or the support person, where they can actually go in and if they have enterprise, so if they have pro, they'll go in and write next steps, and then it's in the notes. They don't have to go and copy it over, and they just, create a task for someone and say, listen, go into the notes and you'll see the next steps, please handle that. And it's good to go. I don't have to, I can copy and paste, but it's already there. And if you're an enterprise, we can actually trigger a whole bunch of workflows or even create a ticket based on these answers. So if on the sales side, I could create a ticket for the next steps that moves it automatically to the next stage, or just move it. And I'll show you in a second how we've set it up on the enterprise. But for customer success or for onboarding or anything else, I'm thinking of a very interesting where you can actually connect this to a workflow. So you create a field that will trigger the workflow and then start the next process. In other words, okay, this now creates a ticket. This ticket has all the information in it. It's already connected because I'm logging this in as a note. So it's connected to that contact, has the ticket, the workflow is creating that ticket, and then I'm semi-automizing that entire process. So now, for example, if it's a ticket that's really problematic and we need to send this off to the dev department, so who do you send it to? You can create fields for that. And then we can create a workflow that actually creates a ticket, and that's already sitting on their desk waiting for them. And that's all done while you're having that conversation. If it's in customer support or onboarding customer or anything that's kind of in the next level.
Yeah, and something I hadn't thought of before, just right now, I'll sort of brainstorm on the fly. You mentioned problematic tickets. Before I worked at HubSpot Academy, I've been a support rep, but both at HubSpot and at a different SaaS company. And occasionally, there will be these critical situations. Some system will be down. And having consistent communication across the support team for customers calling in or emailing in is difficult and crucial, right? And so I imagine, like, if you are in a support team and some critical system has gone down, you could create the playbook for, like, the January 11th crit sit. Like, here are our current talking points. And you could just have one person whose job could be to update that playbook. And every time someone calls in, like, hey, my system isn't working, your support team could pull up that playbook and get the most up-to-date version of what's going on. Like, hey, yes, we are aware of the situation. We've identified the problem. We're working on a solution, whatever the status is, right? And not have to constantly be checking, like, okay, has anything changed? Is the situation the same? Like, this person is asking for an update. To have just one playbook act as that source of truth and be supporting all of your teams, no matter who answers the phone when a customer calls in, could be very powerful. And I suppose there are probably positive examples too, but it's just like when you said a really problematic ticket, like, oh, I have experienced those, right? Like, I know what it means for the stakes to be high and for customers to really want answers right now, and for it to be difficult to get the most recent update in the moment on the phone. Leonardo is surprised I was a support rep. Yes, that's where I got my start. Oh, yeah, Mark.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
So before we go into the use cases and show a few examples, I just wanted to touch on a few questions that people are actually putting through here. One is an example of a playbook that we've already showed, but we'll show a live example that our team has built. Also, questions related. Do you think people should be using Playbooks instead of, say, the sidebar for updating properties during a call. Give me your take on that, and I'll tell you what I think as well.
I mean, if you have the enterprise version, I would say yes, probably, absolutely. Just because it's all within that flow, right? Like you're asking questions and things. And you could even, at the bottom, I love your idea of having next steps, Mark. You could just have a bunch of things for updating properties. And like I said, it could be not just for the record they're on, if they're making this call from the contact record or the company record or the deal record, wouldn't matter. You can update, deal stage and like company values and contact information and stuff. I think that could be really powerful. It's not to say that the left-hand sidebar where properties live will no longer be relevant at all. But I think the way I would think of that division of labor is the left-hand sidebar with the properties should be for your employees' reference, to be able to look and see, like, what is this person's job title, or what, what information have we gathered from them previously, try to understand who this person is. And the information I'm gathering, I'm inputting into a playbook. Now, if you don't have the enterprise version, then the left-hand sidebar with the properties is going to be your main and maybe only place to update properties. But just today, I announced yesterday, we moved conditional sections in that left-hand sidebar down from enterprise to professional. So if you're a professional user, you can probably get creative with the information that shows up in that sidebar based on lifecycle stage or deal stage or whatever. So that then that acts a little bit like a playbook. Maybe your playbook directs people like, hey, don't forget to update, their challenges or goals or top initiatives or whatever field, and you do it over on the left-hand side. But I would play around with the interplay between those two. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, for sure. I think also some of the qualification questions, like updating some of the data on the left-hand side, should be there anyway, because I've already qualified the person before I have the conversation. And then a lot of the times the answer or the field on the left-hand side is not in a question form. So, I have to start thinking, how do I say, I mean, obviously, what country are you from? That's easy. But if it's a qualification, if I have my 7 qualification questions, even if they're on the left-hand side, which that's how we've done it until now, and we'll carry on doing it in Pro, you're looking at those qualifications. The label that you put there is not exactly, you want to have a long-winded question around that as the label. So this will allow you to put in the field itself is the field that you've created, but the question that you put in the playbook can be a whole long story until you get to the question. So you can put in anything you want there. And I think that makes it more of a conversational piece. And then the output is yes, no on those questions, or putting in the data. I think that's great.
I think that's so smart, Mark. I think of, again, in a sales context, very often in your qualification process, pretty early on, your sales reps are going to be asking these prospects, trying to identify what pain are they experiencing that you can maybe help them with. And maybe you have a property called pain points, right? But if your sales reps are like, tell me about your pain, tell me, where are you suffering? That's not a good engaging sales
for the last 2 days.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like your playbook is going to say something like, what are your goals for 2023? What challenges are you facing in achieving those goals? Right. This is much more human, much more, and makes more sense. Right. Now you're talking to a business person like, oh yeah, in 2023, we want to grow revenue or headcount or whatever to this degree. The challenge we're facing is, the economic headwinds and whatever. And then your sales rep can translate that into whatever goes into your pain points dropdown, right? But I think you're absolutely spot on, Mark, that your internal lingo, your property names, by definition, are going to be pretty short. They're not going to be in the form of a question. You want your playbook to help your reps sound like a human and ask in a meaningful, sensible kind of way the kinds of questions that pull that information out.
The other question that's coming through now, which is very interesting actually, is if you're using this on when you're opening a deal and you managing that process, and you get to the stage when you want to add line items or products. Is that the next feature that you're going to be? Was that
John who had that idea? I love that idea. It's funny. I feel like every time HubSpot comes out with a cool new feature around properties, and we've had a lot in the last year, there's always at least one comment on my LinkedIn video that's like, yes, but what about line items? Right. I don't know. I honestly have no idea if that's something the Playbooks team is thinking about. But yeah, the ability to require line items on a deal, to take that process and put it into a playbook would be splendid. I agree. But I had not thought of it before. I can ask the engineering team if they have, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Someone else is asking about reporting. Is there any, I'm trying to think of a use case around reporting. It's not 100% clear to me, but it's not connected to reporting in any way, is it?
I don't think we have any like usage reports around what playbook is being used the most. I mean, on the page where your playbooks are listed, you can see total views and last viewed when it was last modified. So some very lightweight, you can at least look and be like, this playbook I created 6 months ago has not been viewed by anyone. Maybe we need some training on the sales team. But as far as, tying the usage of a playbook to a closed won deal, that's not something we currently have. I think right now the reporting story for playbooks is sort of an indirect one, where if you're using, again, that enterprise version and things are piping into properties, you're going to be able to report on the things in those properties. The playbook kind of facilitates the data getting where it needs to be so that you can do the reporting you need. But actual reporting for playbooks is pretty slim right now. And that's another area I'm not sure if we have plans or not to improve it. But I could definitely see where it would be useful.
Got it. So I'm going to add another question here, and also to summarize one of the questions. The difference between the Pro version and the Enterprise version is that in the Enterprise, I can update properties. And in the Pro, I can create a question and a note and then add all the information that I have there. And then that will be saved on the notes, on the call, on the meeting. But I can't update the properties, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that was clear to me. It's someone else is asking that. And then the other thing, which I agree with, is a question here about me being inside a deal and updating contacts and updating the contacts and the company while I'm inside the deal playbook. I think that is really powerful. Someone brought that up, and I think that it is true because, as you said at the beginning of the conversation, I have to open and open a tab and I have to go and I forget about it, and then I don't go and update it. So if it's information that I'm getting about the company while I'm speaking to the customer and I'm inside the deal and I've already opened the deal, and suddenly he's giving me more information on his personal level and more information on the ICP on the company level, I don't know where to put that. So the best way is to just go now and update those fields. And obviously I need to put those questions ahead of time. Otherwise I won't be able to update them. But I can, over time, say, hang on, this is the information that I'm drawing in these meetings on the personal level and on the company level. Let's put those in. Obviously, you're not going to put in every single field in both objects inside it. You can, but I don't think that would be helpful. But then at least you can ask. So I think if I understand the question, I can ask questions not only about the opportunity or whatever object I'm opening the playbook on, but around the company and around the contact on the company level, and then get those answers and those update the CRM in the right place.
Yeah. And that I think this is such an exciting new opportunity that I don't know how many HubSpot customers know about it. When we first released the ability to connect playbooks to properties, this didn't work, right? If you were on a deal record and you had a playbook that updated deal properties and updated contact properties and updated company properties, only the deal property questions would work. The others would be grayed out, which was an awful experience. But we fixed that a few months ago. We fixed it. And so this is really a wild new world that I think not very many customers have gotten a chance to play around with and figure out best practices for. But I think what you're describing, Mark, is absolutely the sort of flow we're trying to enable here. And I just think it would be so powerful and so easy for a sales rep, where normally it would be such a mess to try to take all that stuff down in notes and then figure out like, oh yeah, this I need to copy into this property on the contact record and this one on the company record. And I think this could simplify a lot.
Okay, great. So I think it's probably a good idea for us to show a few use cases, and unless you have something else we want to add in the meantime, I can jump in and show a few use cases and kind of the process we put together to try and create this. Let me share my screen. Hang on 1 second. So if I go back to this just for a second, a few use cases. So I'm going to focus today on a sales use case. We talked about customer success. I think we can brainstorm, and guys, I think it's also what's cool about this is you can be really creative and connect all the dots and say, okay, I have this input of data making the process easier. That can trigger a whole array of sequences, workflows, use the automation as much as you want to kind of move the process forward. The way I was thinking, we were thinking about how to build this process and design the sales process, which I think is the first step here, before you even go in and create the playbook or playbooks, is to look at the entire process. So if I'm looking at a sales process, for example, what does the rep need to do to move the prospect forward? What indicates that the rep has completed the role, so on and so forth. So everyone has their questions. What I've built here, I don't know if you can see it. Hopefully you can.
Yeah, I can see it.
Something that I suggest doing and right at the beginning of the process. And again, as we said, the RevOps or whoever's taking ownership of this process and saying, I'm going to run after the different teams to create these playbooks. Define, and you probably have kind of this similar document or diagram of what your process looks like. And say, okay, I have a new lead, inbound or outbound. They come into HubSpot. Automatically, it's going to create a contact. Hopefully you have, the ability to create a company based on domain, so that domain that gets switched on automatically. And now, when it's ready, and we're not going to go into the sales process and everything, and lead management, that we'll leave for another webinar. But there is a SDR qualification or the sales qualification process where someone is looking at that person that is ready to speak to. Okay. MQL, not MQL, that's also another conversation, but it's a person that we've decided that we want to try and set up a meeting with. So we create a hand raiser qualification process place. That's what we have in HubSpot. And that's what I'm playing around with for Penguin as well. Someone's hand raised, they say, okay, I want to speak to you guys. So we first of all go in and see if it's the right time to speak to them. This is the right person, the right ICP, and so on. And then move to the qualification meeting demo. So before that, I have all the information, and I'll show you an example of these two processes in blue here for the actual pre-meeting and during the meeting where they can actually update it. And then when I go forward, I say, okay, well, going forward at the next stage, I can actually set up a playbook for the sales team or for the AE or whoever's going to actually go and start having the first deal stage meeting. And there they'll have their questions, which could be based on Medic or BANT, going forward, double checking we have the budget, checking we have all the information, and then going into more detail and collecting the information on the deal level. So in the first two ones, I'll probably be on the contact level, on the contact object, and then I'll move to the deal object. And then what we talked about a bit is, okay, hang on a second, now we're onboarding a new customer. So once this becomes closed won on, the new onboarding pipeline that we have, that deal, it pops up a new playbook, which is the pre-kickoff and the kickoff playbook, so that the customer success team now has their own playbook on how to onboard the customer. So that's kind of, and obviously you can design this how you want, but I think this helps to know which department you need to reach out to, who are the people that's going to help you get this created, and where it makes sense and where you're actually adding value. So 1 second. Examples, but you know what, let us, because we're kind of running out of time. More important, let actually show you the example that we have. Okay, so this is just in our test portal here. This is enterprise, so I'll show you two versions, but this is the enterprise version. So we actually have the ability to update here as well. So I've got Drew Harris, and Dewey Harris here. We're at the lead stage. So this is, let's say, the hand raiser. It says SDR qualification process. So I click on this and I can play around with it. Okay. And what's interesting is that here I see, okay, cool. Just if I don't remember what to do, please be aware. I have the information. This is the basic information that I should have in the portal. Okay, I've got that. I have first name. Okay, I can go forward. The qualification questions. Okay, so this is not even for a call. This is actually for me to see what happens if I have a targeted account. Okay, so I can see now that they filled out a form, so there should be a company here. Is this company on the targeted account here or not? If it is on the target account, or the account already exists, in other words, is there already a company, maybe this actually belongs to someone else. It belongs to the owner, okay? So if the target account is in process, then let's just move this over to, if that's the process that you guys have, move this owner to the company owner, okay? It shows me who the company owner is, and then I'll sign the company over. Yeah, you can already see this is already populated for me. This is owned by David. Okay, so I might decide, okay, David shouldn't own this. I should move this over to Ricky. Okay, so I've already gone through the process, the qualification process that the company that our company has created. That you are supposed to be qualifying new leads and not people that are associated with other companies that are being already dealt with the pipeline and so on. So you can here you can I'm just playing around with it. If not associated, please qualify. Okay, so now I start. Persona, I'll have my job title in here. And unfortunately, the example I gave you, but if I had a job title, I would say the job title here. I can add my notes. Does that meet our persona, yes or no? LinkedIn profile. I can have the LinkedIn profile here as well. I can have it here on the left-hand side. Go into LinkedIn in parallel, take a look. And then I have my ideal customer profile. So I got my industry, my company size, annual revenue, the LinkedIn to the company. I have everything in front of me for me actually to do this qualification, okay? In our case, we actually want to know built with, okay? Do I have built with, so I'm clicking out here and I say, okay, now let me put in the URL. I can see they have HubSpot, okay? They don't have HubSpot, they have another CRM before we actually reach out and have a conversation with them. So those are the different things that I'm kind of can go with. One second. And so on and so forth. So then life cycle stage. What else I want to also talk about is you can put in images here. You can put in more information just so that you know in front of you what the actual read process is. What are the next steps? So here I can actually go and update the status. So I can say, okay, now I'm moving it to, I think I've qualified it. So I need to move it to open deal or in progress. Okay. If qualified, and then I can say, okay, follow-up notes and take forward, move to the sales team. So now I'm moving from David to Perry, for example. There's not Perry in this one. I move this to, I don't know. He's not in that. This is a test account. Okay, so I move this to Ricky. And if unqualified, what do I do? I already have my unqualified reasons. So think about it. You can go as fast as you want. And then I just log the notes. And then here you see that all that information is in here. Okay, so if I want to, build it out, update it, I have all the information here. The next person that comes in gets that. Now, once it moves to the next stage, let's say it's already moved to the sales team before the first call, then what they can do is they can look at the SQL call. Okay, here I've said they should be doing this. If they're using Medic, it's in front of me. I have all the processes. I don't have to remember. I have my questions. So this is an example where I would be using it in Pro. I'll have more questions. And then I can also add ready to move to the next stage and the follow-up I talked about. The other thing that we created is actual qualification process, which is the handover between the SDR and the sales team. So for example, the sales team says, before you have a call, please review ICP. This is all the information that we did, that the SDR did the process before. So I take a look at it, tick, 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 great. I'm not wasting my time. I'm going to have this call. And then use this call. And then this goes in. How do I actually have the call? What I should be focusing on? And then introduction and call entry. What are the top initiatives? What is your role? what are the goals for the year? That's what we were talking about before. I can have more information under budget, authority. So you get the idea. And then at the end, I think this is really powerful. When can we set up our next call? I already put it in the notes here. So I have the prompt of the question that I want to make sure that I can get to the next stage so I don't forget. Create follow-up tasks as well. And how can we move forward? So yes, I'm going to open the deal. So I move this forward and set an outcome. Okay, I'm logging a call. So we connected and log the call. So this will be logged as a call going forward. And then because I have information, so then you can take it in all kinds of directions, because you can say, okay, cool, this is great. If it's unqualified, or if I put it on a nurture because the conversation isn't irrelevant, that should trigger a workflow that automatically nurtures that person. So I'm doing it right in the same process.
Yeah, I love that. All that. I'm seeing a lot of great chatter here in the chat. So many of you have feature requests, sounds like, for Playbooks, which I love. Actually, not to go down the self-promotion route, but in a few weeks, on March 14th, I'm running a webinar with Drew McDaniel, who is the head of the development team that builds the Playbooks tool. He's going to talk about some recently released features, and he's going to share his roadmap of where they're headed in 2023. If you want to come and see if he's thinking what you're thinking about, and if you want to put some bugs in his ears, I would love to have you all join that event. I love the way you're all engaging with things Playbooks could be and might be in the future. I'm sorry, I don't have answers to any of these questions of whether reporting or other things are coming. But Mark, I love these things you've built. I never thought before we started prepping for this webinar of having the next step section. And I think that's so smart. And so many of these playbooks you're building are not just valuable during a call, but before and after too, right? Like marketing just sent us a lead. I'm going to sit down and take a look at it. A playbook could be almost a checklist of, is this a target account? Who are we assigning it to? Are we moving forward with it? Are we rejecting it, sending it back to marketing for more nurturing? All of that could be handled in a single flow, which would just be fantastic, rather than qualification so often is like sales reps get a lead and they think, do I feel like reaching out to this person? I don't know. And they kind of make a decision based on their feelings and the mood they're in. And this could remedy that.
And you can also give more information. So I think that's another thing with the notes now, because it comes back with the notes. Yeah. So it can be sent back to a unqualified with unqualified reasons, but sometimes it's gray reasons. So you can add your notes in the playbook and say, listen, guys, I'm not 100% sure about this. Let's have a follow-up conversation. These types of companies are too small for us. What do you think? That's why I disqualified. Because that I hear all the time. Why are you disqualifying? We gave you everything. This is the perfect person. He's your persona. The company's your size. And you say, okay, well, there's something that you didn't, and then you're improving the process of that handshake between sales and marketing by just having that conversation.
Yeah, now you're making my heart race, because I think that's kind of tale as old as time, right? Like marketing does their due diligence and qualifies these leads and sends them to sales, and sales is like, nah, I'm not going to contact that lead. And why, right? And sometimes there are good reasons. Sometimes sales knows something like, oh, we need to update marketing's qualification criteria because we know this company size or this industry or this location is not a good fit for us. But without an area to add notes or document that, it's impossible to tell that from a lead that the sales team just didn't notice. They didn't work it because they didn't know it was there, right? And so playbooks could solve all these problems. That's the takeaway message. Playbooks will solve all of your problems. Not to overpromise anything.
The next feature we're working on, which I would like, Carl, is that the next step is, do you want a coffee or not? And then you just put in yes, and then it suddenly appears.
Maybe we can 3D print you a coffee.
So that's the next thing we can work on. Okay, I'm not seeing. I think we're right at the end of the time here. First of all, thank you very much for joining us. I think this has been really interesting. It's great to find kind of new features and things that we can. 1 second. Yeah. So just so first of all, thank you for being here and helping us kick this off. I think this is going to be really interesting. For me, this has been really interesting. The whole process of looking into this subject matter in a much more deeper manner than I did before when we were using it on a basic level. Obviously, from the conversations with you, and obviously today's conversation, which I think is great value to everyone here. In 2 weeks' time, we'll be having our next Penguin HubSpot hacks, and that session will be around how to use campaigns, which I think is a pain point for everyone here on the call, probably. If you are really in the RevOps world and trying to use attribution, so on and so forth, but how to use campaigns properly and setting them up and kind of getting the maximum out of that. That's something that in Penguin and with our customers and the team here has been using, especially in HubSpot and connecting it and so on, and integrating and we can show best practices, bring in use cases again, and kind of have a few questions. We'll see if Perry's going to join me or someone else. We haven't decided on that, but that's the topic that we're going to go for next week. And if you just visit our website, you'll get more information. And thank you everyone for submitting topics. We're going to go through them, and we have if it's every 2 weeks, and this carries on until the end of the recession, which I don't know when that's going to happen, but at least for the next 12 months or longer, hopefully this will be something that we do every 2 weeks for a long time. We'll be able to get to all the topics, and if people want to submit anything in the website, they can go into the form they submitted and more topics and ideas, and that's great. And we're in touch with Carl and with HubSpot and see if we can, going forward in the next couple of months, bring any one of his colleagues or friends over as well to join us and talk about other topics. So I think HubSpot on their side are just waiting for us to tell us what are the topics that we want to put forward, and then we'll see who else can join us. But we started at I think when it comes to marketing, first impressions, you got to bring in top guns, and that's the way. So that's why we brought Carl in to start this. So
thank you.
We can go forward. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you all for being here. This is a big group and lots of good comments in the chat. This is fun.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Mark. Till next time. Over and out.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.